didn't watch our last segment that we just did, we're back at it again. This is our second one of the week. We're predicting every single record in the NFL by picking every single game. We went one by one, pick the result of every single game, gets a more realistic view of it. Like lots of times people come out with the predictions and everybody is like 10-7. It's like because optimism is an all-time high. But no, we're realistic. We're like your team sucks. This team is gonna go like 1-15.
I
sorry,
love that.
Patriots fan. We'll get there.
more realistic is hilarious.
Honestly, well, it's record predictions. Nobody's gonna be realistic, but at least we're not shoving sunshine up your ass. That's gonna be the thing. We're gonna cut and dry. Even if we suck at predicting, even if I say the Panthers were gonna go 12-5 like I did last year,
you know what?
At least I was picking every game.
We're starting at the top this year. Patriots 17-0. Jacoby Brissett, next Tom Brady.
They couldn't get it done in 2007, but this team is better. They're getting it done this year.
There you go. Have you seen their offensive core? You do not know Kendrick Bourne.
Ramondre Stevenson is the new Marshawn Lynch. Barry Sanders, who? Anyway, Simon, why do you give the Patriots in last?
I don't actually. I have the Buffalo Bills. I'm fucking with you. No, it's absolutely the Patriots. But I have them. They're the bottom. They're absolutely the worst team in this division. In a division that has three other fairly good teams, I think both the Dolphins and Bills definitely regressed, but they're still good. They definitely still will be fighting for a playoff spot. But I think this Patriots team has no fucking hope, man. They're bad. They're really bad. They're the same. They're even worse than they were last year, in my opinion. And I don't think Drake May helps them out anymore. I think so. I don't know if I'm missing something, but when I look at this team, I think that they're just brutal. Assuming Drake May doesn't come out here and just does like something insane, like something incredible, and he's the CJ Stroud of the year or something like that, right? Like assuming that doesn't happen, I think that this team they're just bad. I actually feel like the record I have for them is better than I would have given them otherwise. If you would just ask me on the street. I have them going 6-11. And I feel like that's good for them.
Oh, you're actually more optimistic on them than I.
Exactly. Like, that's the funny thing. I look at this 6-11 record, and I was like, I don't know about that. Because this team's bad. They're just bad. There's not a, like, I'm looking across their starters here, and I honestly don't know if I can find, like, a real redeeming quality necessarily. Like, I don't know, man. Their defense is going to be okay. But, like, what are they...
Their defense was actually really good last year.
Yeah, though. But they lost Judon as well, and he was a huge part of that. I still think
they lost Judon, but they also got so many players back from injury. Like, again, I have the Pats being even worse than you do, so maybe I shouldn't make the case. But I will say, if Patriots fans have any reason for optimism, it's that a lot of players, like, namely the big one, Christian Gonzalez, after having such a good rookie year to start the season and then getting hurt. Like, there's a lot of players who are coming back from injury. But yeah, no, losing Judon is a big one, and that definitely hurts them.
Yeah, I don't know. When I look at this roster, I just don't see anything. I honestly, like, I look across it and I don't see, like, that offensive line, I recognize quite a few names. We already proved my offensive line is jack shit, but, like, I think when I look at that offensive line, that looks fairly good. Jacoby Brissett is currently number 1 on their depth chart. We'll see if that changes, but assuming that he's a fine quarterback, but he's not going to win you any games, really. Like, he's a game manager. I think when I look at this team, I just think this is, in my opinion, I think this is the potential to be the worst Patriots team we've seen in a while, and that's just a lot. I just think
especially when they went 4-13 last year and had the second pick in the draft.
And the funny thing is, I think they absolutely could go 4-13 or worse. Like, they're just bad. They have nothing. Like, when you look at, like, a team like the Saints, right? Like, we did that earlier here, where, like, you look at it and they go, sure, they have a bunch of old guys. They have Alvin Kamara. They have Derek Carr. Like, a bunch of guys who, sure, they could yank them to a better record. But, like, do you really see anybody? I guess like you can say Christian Gonzalez, considering he's coming back from injury. That's a good. It's a good thing you pointed that out because I don't know if I would have necessarily immediately gone there. But I think other than like him, there's not a lot of people on this entire roster that I would sit here and go, that's the guy who gives me hope. That is the guy who makes me think that this team could be better than what everybody says they're going to be. I don't see anything. I seriously, I just don't see I don't know. Maybe I'm just going. Patriots fans, feel free to shit on me in the comments, but I really do not see much when I look at this roster.
No, and I don't either. I think I was kind of just trying to play devil's advocate for a bit there, because there are like windows in which I can see them like potentially over exceeding people's expectations. That defense was very good last year despite a lot of the injuries that they had. So that's a big cause for hope when you get some of those players like Christian Gonzalez back. But I mean, also one of those players you were going to get back from injury was Judon, who you're not going to anymore. But that's a window for hope if that defense is still good. Obviously, Drake May is a window for hope to a certain extent. Just putting someone else in a quarterback who has a lot of potential, hopefully can turn your franchise around. But yeah, I do think for all the devil's advocate that I can play, I am more siding with you here, Simon, to say I don't think this team is very good. I think that defense gets a lot worse without Judon. I think you're also losing. Like, I think it was time for Belichick to go. As I predicted on last year's show, by the way, I didn't like hype myself up nearly enough for this. I said Belichick was going to get fired before anybody else said that. So I'm giving myself credit for that. Let's not talk about the Panthers.
The 12-5 Panthers, man, made a good pick.
I did. I made one good pick. I said the Patriots were going to be shit, and I said Bill Belichick was going to be fired at the end of the year, which he was.
It's all right. I had the Jets winning the division last year, so it's all right. We all make mistakes.
I think I did too. So, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that. But even though I do think it was time for him to go, and I understand why they let go of him, and I think Tron Mayo is going to be a good coach, you're still losing the best defensive coach of all time. So I think it may be understandable for your defense to take a step back, not having that voice in the room. So with all that being said, I feel like I've kind of split the fence with a lot of what I've been saying. I don't think they're going to be very good. I'm definitely on your side here. I have them doing quite a bit worse than you. I have them going 3-14.
There we go. Yeah, like that's what I mean though. I agree with you. I actually think 3-14 is better than my pick. But
yeah, just because I look at this roster and I think, yeah, that defense is going to take a step back, even though they have a lot of good players because they've lost Belichick and they've lost Judon. And I think this offense just is not inspiring at all to me. I think that receiver core, again, not inspiring at all to me. When your trio is Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, and Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk, I think, is a good pick, but I mean, he wasn't even the number one receiver at Washington. I mean, because it was Odunze there, but still, it's not like he's going to come in and light the world on fire. Again, a pretty good offensive line, but I don't think you're going to be dinking and dunking it down the field. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot of reason for me to say they're going to win a lot of games, especially in the division that they play in, where every other team is a playoff contender. Yep. So, yeah, I think 3-14. I do think that's about their floor. I couldn't see them doing much worse than that. But yeah, no, I think they're going to be very much a bottom dweller, top 5 pick kind of team.
Yep. I absolutely see a world where this is the worst team in the NFL, honestly. To give a real prediction, to put my name on something, I see a world where the Patriots are picking number 1 next year. And I don't think that would be a bad thing for them.
Out of curiosity, do you know where you have them picking now?
I do.
Like,
well,
with the record that you have?
Well, they're 6-11.
Oh yeah, right.
They're 6-11. So I can't look at it actually. I have them 8th technically, but truthfully, I think that like I look at like the teams that I have. Have we not covered any of these teams yet? No, I think I can talk about it. Number 1 pick in the thing that I made of like at this point like a month and a half ago, I have the Titans picking number 1. Commanders picking number 2 and Saints picking number 3, right? So I think that the Patriots are much worse than the Saints. I could see a world where they do quite a bit worse than the Commanders. And I think the Titans and Patriots to me are a bit more of a toss-up. But I think they're both bad. They're both very bad. So I think, I don't know, I could absolutely see them going first overall. And there's a lot of bad teams this year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
They're bad.
And I mean, I could also see it. I have them picking third. Panthers and Broncos are the only two teams that I have above them. I would still stand by that because I do think those two teams are generally worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with the general conceit that like I wouldn't be shocked if they're picking first overall.
Okay, do we want to move on? Because I think now we can get we shit on the Patriots enough. We can get into the interesting part of this division, where honestly, I could if you were to walk up to me and go, I have any of these three teams winning the division.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like I'd give it to you. I think that
I think they're interchangeable, honestly, the next three.
You'll see. I do disagree with that, but I do think that there is an argument for all of them, is more what I mean by that.
Okay.
Yeah. But do we want to start with your third? And we can go from there? Is your third interesting?
Yeah, I will. My third is definitely interesting.
Okay, should we start with my third then, or should we start with yours? What do you want? How do you want to do it then?
I'll start with my third. I'll start it with a bang.
All right, Aaron Rodgers. So hit him with
this
it.
team. No, I'm actually not going there.
Oh, really?
I'm not going with Aaron Rodgers. I don't have the Jets in third.
Oh.
This team that I have in third, I have going 9-8, so not a bad record, but I have them missing the playoffs for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
And that's the Buffalo Bills.
Can I tell you something? I also have the Bills in third. Also going 9-8. Also missing the playoffs. So me and you both are in the same boat. Bills fans are gonna hate us. But
Bills fans are gonna hate us.
Yeah, and that's mainly because they lost some pieces. This division is insane. I think more than anything else, I think the biggest stat that I can show you on my little JPEG here that I immediately notice, I have them going 2-4 in divisional games. And I think that's the biggest thing that'll probably determine this entire division is just who wins against who, right? And I have the Bills losing to I can't look at it the same way you do, but assumingly I have them losing to the Jets, I have them losing to the Dolphins. Fuck, I might even have them losing a shocker to the Patriots. I don't know. But I
do have that.
You do have that? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
I have them losing a shocker.
Yeah, I think
it happened last year.
There you go. I do think they're worse than last year. I actually would go to say that I think they're quite a bit worse than last year. But when you have Josh Allen, like a quarterback like him, I think the general assumption is you're going to be oh, Jesus Christ. You're going to be a playoff team every year. But I think when I look at this team, take Josh Allen out of it, this is a bad team, truthfully. James Cook is a good running back. I think that wide receiver core is okay, but I don't think it's anything compared to what they had last year. He'll make it work.
I don't think it's okay, but I'll get to my opinion.
Yeah, I'll let you give your take on it in a second. But I think this defense also got quite a bit worse. They still have a fairly good O-line or D-line, excuse me. But I think past that it's fairly rough. There's not a lot of very big names in the secondary there. I think I don't know. When I look at this team, I just don't really see much is kind of what I mean. They don't have a lot outside of their big star to really make me confident in the fact that they're going to do really well. And that being said, I think that 9-8 in a lot of ways, that might be their ceiling. Honestly, I don't know if I see Caleb, I don't have a lot of shocking picks in this division. I got to say some stupid shit. I think that the Bills, they're just I love Josh Allen. Bills fans, I'm going to say that. I don't know if there's a quarterback that I love watching more than Josh Allen. That man trucks linebackers, and I'm all for it. But I think this team's not good, man. They're just not. Like, it's the pieces around him. This is going to be a transitional year for them, I think. And this,
Yeah.
I could see them. I think Josh Allen pulls them to a 9-8 record because he's Josh Allen, but I don't think more than that should be expected. I think going into next year, we see them buff up this offense a little bit and give Josh Allen more weapons, and maybe next year we start to see things get back in motion into where they should be for a team like the Bills. But I think this year just isn't it. They don't have it.
Yeah. And I would completely agree with all of that. I think my biggest thing that I've seen throughout the offseason and just consuming all of the football content that I do, listening to all my podcasts and shit, the biggest kind of overwhelming opinion that I see is the Bills are going to be fine. Like, the Bills will be fine. They'll do the exact same as they did as last year. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, the people are freaking out over nothing. The players that they let go are old. Like, it's going to be fine. I want to emphasize two things here. The Bills last year were on the precipice of missing the playoffs already, and were on the precipice already of not being a very good team. The Bills, before they went on their long stretch of wins, they needed a miracle to get into the postseason. A miracle. Like, there was a point when their playoff chances were like 10% or something. That doesn't exactly inspire a lot of hope in me. And that is a roster that already had so many more pieces than this current roster does. I want to run through, we did this in our most like overrated NFL team segment, but I will do it again just to run through all of the players that they have lost, because it is a incredible list, more than any other team in the NFL, in my opinion. Let's just start reading them. These are all players that I believe at least had some sort of impact on the team, of varying levels, but still had some sort of impact on the team. Gabe Davis at wide receiver. Obviously, I've criticized the signing by Jacksonville. I don't think it was terrible for them to let him go.
He's a
but
good
still
wide
a
receiver.
key piece.
Yeah,
he's a good receiver.
He was a very, very good wide receiver too, in my opinion.
Yep. Terrell Dotson goes to Seattle. Has become a starter on Seattle and played pretty well for the Bills last year. Leonard Floyd, Poona Ford, again, another Seahawks connection. He's also very good. Micah Hyde is a big one there. Dame Jackson as well. Linval Joseph, Shaq Lawson up front. Mitch Morse is another huge one. Losing him at center is huge. Losing Jordan Phillips on your defensive line. Losing your other safety in Jordan Poyer. And then also losing Tre'Davious White as well. Like, that is, if you were to ask me, and also the big one, obviously, that I don't know why I haven't said yet, is Stephon Diggs, trading Stephon Diggs away. If you were to ask me, in, like, the prime Bills Josh Allen era, other than Josh Allen, you ask me, who are the key players to this Bills team's success?
Yeah.
I think I just listed most of them in the players that they lost. So to say you can just bandage this up and say it's going to be fine because we have Josh Allen, I think that does a huge discredit to all the other players that made this Bills team great. I think you're right. I think Josh Allen is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and that may not even be giving him enough credit. He's incredible. He's going to drag them to wins that they shouldn't get, frankly, because of the rest of this roster. But to say that they're just going to be fine with the roster that they have, with the receiver room that they have, you said it's okay. I think it's horrid. I think it's one of the worst receiver rooms in the league. I think you compare that to the Patriots receiver room that we were dunking on earlier, and I'm like, yeah. I don't know, it's pretty close.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think
Khalil Shakir is your number 1 receiver. Like, what? That's who they have as they listed as Curtis Samuel. Sure, I think he's good, but like, I don't know. Is he a number 1 receiver? No. Is Keon? Are you going to put all your faith in Keon Coleman as an end of the first round receiver? Which again we talked about with the Bucs earlier today in terms of like first round draft hit rates. I'm just going to say this one more thing. No. Wide receiver, the worst position out of any of them at 27%. So are you betting on that 27% chance that Keon Coleman is going to immediately come in and replace Stephon Diggs, even if he had a down season last year? You're kidding yourself. I don't think this team is going to be very good. Well, I think they're going to be good enough to where you're like, Josh Allen is still a top 5, top 3, whatever you want to say, quarterback, but this is going to be a huge step down from last year, and for all the people saying that it's not going to be, you're out of your mind.
I'm just going to come out and say my big shock, like breakout player of the year. This man has not played with a good quarterback his entire NFL. Like, he's never played with a quarterback like Josh Allen. He's only played with mediocre guys like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, just absolutely shitter guys who couldn't hit the side of a barn if they tried. I think this is the season that Marquez Valdez-Scantling absolutely turns on the Jets. Number 1 wide receiver material right there. He is the future of this roster. Yeah, no, they're fucked. It's gonna be bad.
I mean, yeah, you joke, but I mean, like, isn't that? Wouldn't you argue that MVS is on a similar level to a guy like Khalil Shakir or a guy like Curtis Samuel? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's that outlandish. And there's a reason
I've always thought he was an okay wide receiver. I look at this when I saw him as that he's not starting. I actually was a little surprised. Because like it's a little surprising to me at least. We should move on because I do think a lot of the same complaints, maybe not to the same level, but a lot of the same things we're talking about with the Bills can be talked about with the Dolphins, potentially, if we want to move on.
Do you have them as the second team?
I do have them as the second team.
Okay.
We
will have a disagreement there, but we'll talk about the Dolphins.
No, we can talk about it. I figured the best conversation we're gonna have today is going to be about the Jets, and we should save that for last.
Yep.
So I think we move down to Miami and talk about this Dolphins team, who I'm just pulling up their depth chart now. I actually like their team a lot. When I look at it, I think that they are significantly better than the Bills. But I'm going to sit here and try and defend my pick because I am an honest man who made these picks a month and a half ago. But that being said, Jalen Ramsey's old. Jordan Poyer doesn't know what he's doing. Dolphins are going 9-8. Sure. There you go. Something like that.
You have the Dolphins also going 9-8.
Hey? I have them also going 9-8. So I have both of these teams going 9-8. And you want to hear something fucking nuts? Miami fans, get ready to riot. They're both missing the playoffs, motherfuckers. Only one team is making it out of this division, and it's not the Dolphins, and it ain't the Bills.
Wow, that's pretty bold. You went into this segment saying you didn't have any bold takes. I think that's one of the boldest takes you've made all series, honestly.
I don't know about that one. I don't know about that.
I don't know. That's pretty bold. To say that both the Dolphins and the Bills aren't going to make the playoffs. Like,
it's because this division. It's bold. Yeah, but it's because this division is insane. Like, assuming we don't see, like, if we didn't have an A-Rod injury last year, you could have said the same thing. Like, you would have had 3 teams competing for what ended up being. They both made it last year. So I guess it would have been 3
Bills
teams.
Dolphins, yep.
Yeah. So it would have been 3 teams competing for 2 spots. So no matter what, the only reason there wasn't an upset to this degree last season was because A-Rod got hurt. Really. If you want to look at it like that. This season, assuming no injuries, there is going to be some sort of, and assuming somehow all 3 teams don't make it, which can happen. But I think, I don't know. I don't think it's that out of the realm of possibility with how many good teams are in the AFC.
Yeah. So I guess you basically just have this division cannibalizing itself to where they're all good, but none of them get in. Hey,
a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have ended up having. And I will say that I think that the Dolphins 9-8 is a lot better than the Bills 9-8. I will open with that. I think, being honest, I really like their defense. Like, I think that they have a lot of really, really good pieces. They've always had a good secondary for the last few years, but I think it just got better, adding Jordan Poyer. Like, I'm trying to remember who was there before. But adding him is massive for them. So having Marcus May as a backup safety is insane. Like, I think even on the defensive line, did they have Calais Campbell last year? Am I misremembering that?
I don't think they did.
I
No.
don't think they did. Yeah, I was trying to piece that together. I'm pretty sure he was still a Raven last year, but other than that, I think I don't know. Their defense was already good and it just got better. And I mean, their offense, I mean, this wide receiver room is fun. This is going to be a fun wide receiver room. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Odell. That's fun as fuck. Like you can't Odell's nothing special, but he's only got to be a wide receiver 3 here. Like nobody is expecting him to do anything special really. I think that him as a wide receiver 3 is actually I'd say that's really good. I don't know. I've never been the biggest on Odell at this point in his career. I don't think that he's anything special, and I don't think he can be a wide receiver 1, let alone a wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 3, you're not going to get any complaints out of me about it. I think he's going to be great in that spot. And I mean, Tua at this point has proven himself to be good enough to work with the weapons that he has around him. Yeah. So honestly, I think that this Dolphins team's ceiling is really high. I think this offense has all the potential to be very similar to what they were doing at one point last year with, I believe, was it the Bills they blew out of the... Who did they blow out? They had one crazy game.
The Broncos.
The Broncos. That's what it was, yeah.
70-20, yeah.
That's what it was, yeah. Like, they have the potential... They still have a lot of those pieces offensively to pull off shit like that again and just absolutely put the entire AFC on, like, on standby a little bit. But I think... I don't know. We'll get into it once we get into the Jets. But at least to me, when I look at this Dolphins team, I think the Jets are better. That I like more than anything else. That is the one thing I would leave with. I do think that the Jets are better.
I disagree with that. I'll get into. So I do think this division is going to be close. I'll spoil my Jets record for this point. Like I have all of these teams like. I have the Dolphins in first in the division. I have them going 11-6. I have one win separating the Dolphins from the Jets and one win separating the Jets from the Bills. So I believe it's going to be very close. But I do think the Dolphins are still the best team in this division for a couple reasons. I think their talent can go up against any team in the league. Like I'm not kidding about that at all. I think their offensive talent, defensive talent too, can go up against every team in the league. All right, like Tua obviously is still like he's still a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but with the talent he has around him, he doesn't necessarily need to be. Can you find a better wide receiver trio than Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, OBJ? You'd be pretty hard pressed to. Adding Jonnu Smith in the offseason is actually a really under the radar move that I think will be good for Tua to have that kind of security blanket. Like Jonnu Smith is a good tight end. That offensive line, barring health, is very, very good. Like, Teron Armstead is still one of the top tackles in the league when he's healthy, and the rest of those pieces on the offensive line I still really like. Some good young talent there. On defense, I feel like you said, like they're pretty stacked there. Jordan Poyer, Jawan Holland, Marcus May at safety, also having Jalen Ramsey, still Kendall Fuller at the other safety spot is really good. Rushing the passer, Calais Campbell, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, potentially seeing Chop Robinson come in as well. That's pretty crazy. And then another guy I really like as a Seahawks fan, Jordan Brooks, who I think is going to be one of the biggest free agency steals of this last offseason. That was the worst move I think Seattle made all offseason, was not retaining Jordan Brooks, because truthfully for Seattle, he's been fantastic. So even though the Dolphins have lost a lot of players, which I'll get into, I think they did a good job at replacing them. This Dolphins talent goes up against any team in the league, including the Jets. I think the Dolphins just have a better roster than the Jets straight up. And so that's why I think they will outperform them. The reason I don't have them doing even better than 11-6 is because of some of the concerns I have. I have two big ones. Number one is injuries. You look at this Dolphins roster, we've been pulling up the ESPN depth charts on all of these rosters, and they mark who's ever like questionable or on IR or whatever. I have never seen so much red markings in my life for this roster, and there's a big reason for that, right? Injuries decimated them last year. I believe both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, while they played a lot of the season, were dealing with injuries at some points. They're both marked as questionable here. OBJ has been on and off injured a lot of the time throughout his career as well, also marked down as just being out at this point.
Yeah.
Teron Armstead hasn't played a full season in however long. Tua obviously had a healthy season for the first time in a while last year, but you have to worry about him getting injured as well. Both Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are coming off major injuries. We don't even know if either of them are going to be back for the start of the season. Jordan Poyer is older. You don't know if he's going to hold up. Jalen Ramsey also was dealing with injury last season. Like, I think if this team underperforms, it's going to because injuries have decimated them. And I haven't talked about this a lot for a lot of other teams because with these predictions, it's obviously A, so hard to predict, and B, you don't want to be predicting that. But I think and obviously you still don't want to, I don't want to be predicting that here, but I think it's a major concern that the Dolphins season, I think, will rise and fall on. The one other thing that I will say about this Dolphins team is one of the podcasts I listen to put it as the Dolphins Super Bowl September effect, where the Dolphins, when the weather is good and they're playing in Miami and it's the start of the season, look like a juggernaut. That's when they beat the Broncos 70-20. Like, that's when they were rattling off all these wins. That was when Tyreek Hill was on pace for 2,000 yards and Mike McDonald's scheme was just carving everybody up. But when the weather gets colder and, again, people start to get injured, they kind of trail off, and that ended in their season kind of like sputtering out against the Chiefs in the playoffs, where they gave up that big lead in the division of the Bills. You worry about this team being able to sustain success. And that's another worry I carry into this year. If they prove me wrong on that, I think they can do better than 11-6. I think that 11-6 is nowhere near their ceiling. I think their ceiling is probably about 13 wins, if I'm being quite honest, with the roster that they have. But I worry about injuries. I worry about them sustaining that. Even with that, I think they'll be able to get to a good enough start, and I'll be praying that enough of their players can stay healthy, that I still think they'll be able to beat the Jets just because, A, that Jets team hasn't fully congealed yet, did bad last year. It's a lot of projecting you have to do, and also I think their talent as a whole is still just better.
Yeah. I mean, fair enough. I do think their ceiling is a lot higher than I give them credit for. But I don't think a 9-8, and you have them what, going 11-6?
11-6.
I honestly think like their window like is, again, barring injuries. I think that they're somewhere 9-8 is about as low as I see them going. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. Like I do think that, I don't know, man. They're kind of a weird team to put just because of that. Like, you don't... Tua, like you pointed out, he had a healthy season last year. But I think a lot of people have had a lot of concerns. There was talk about him retiring early at one point due to concussions. And as much as no one wants to talk about that, that's still absolutely a conversation piece when it comes to this type of stuff. I think, I don't know, they're a really tough team to put because of that, because of injury issues. If everything goes right, they have all of the pieces to, if they want... If it's not an if they want, if they can, they could be one of the greatest offenses ever. They have the pieces. They just have to put it together. They just have to do it, right? It's as simple as that. They just need the right things to happen. But I think, I don't know, the odds aren't necessarily in their favor in that sense, right? They are absolutely fighting against some tough odds with it. In a tough division at that. So, I have them missing the playoffs, but I won't sit here and act like I'm necessarily confident on that. I have them in the 8th spot, going 9-8.
Okay, so barely missing out.
Yeah, literally last team out.
Yeah.
But we can move on.
Yeah, no,
we can move on to the team you have in second. I have in first. The New York Jets, who last year, obviously, Aaron Rodgers, his highlight of the year was carrying a flag. So it wasn't exactly the season nor the Jets was looking for, but they've completely, behind Aaron Rodgers, completely changed their quarterback room. They brought in Tyrod Taylor. They also brought in Jordan Travis, brought in Mike Williams as well in the wide receiver room. They're very clearly showing that they want to compete. This is going to be their year. Last year they thought that it was their big chance. This year they fully put all of their eggs back in one basket again. Basically said, it was a fluke. We're going to try it again. And I think they've got a lot of really good pieces here. Like, I think that defense can absolutely be scary. I think we saw that last year as well. They've got a very good defensive line with Quinnen Williams heading that. Quincy Williams also had a very, very strong year. I don't remember how many tackles he had, but he had a pretty stupid amount from what I saw. Like, Sauce Gardner, obviously, on the defensive side. He's been very, very good for them as a lockdown corner. And that's just talking about their defense. Their offense is spectacular as well. Assuming A-Rod can put it all together. A lot of the stuff coming out of training camp has looked very good. I've seen a lot of stuff coming out about how people have been very surprised by his arm more than anything else, about the fact that it's still there with him being 40. The track record for 40-year-old quarterbacks in the NFL not named Tom Brady isn't necessarily great. So there's always that. Like, you gotta assume we didn't really get to see A-Rod last year. You gotta wonder what he's gonna look like this year, because he basically got a year off in a weird sense like that. And now we're just gonna have to see how he looks. At this point, he wasn't that mobile anyway, but you gotta wonder what he's gonna look like as a passer. Is the arm still there past the highlights we've seen out of training camp? We're just gonna have to see with that, because if it is, he's got the weapons. If he can still sling it the way he used to be able to, and like even at the end of his reign as with the Packers, if he can still do that, I think this Jets team can be special. And I think they, at least in my prediction of the NFL, and Caleb, you're gonna hate this one, I have them winning the AFC at a record of 12-5.
Wow.
Going 5-1 in the division. And for that to happen, pretty much everything needs to go right. Aaron Rodgers needs to stay healthy, and he needs to be good. He needs to be the Aaron Rodgers of old. Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, both need to probably have incredible seasons, and this defense needs to be spectacular, which at points I think they were fairly good last year, if memory serves me right. But I think I don't know, I like it. I like this prediction. I think I'm willing to sit on it. Like, there's a lot of these picks from like a month and a half ago now where I look at them and go like, ooh, that's ugly. I actually like this one. I think that there is a pretty good chance that I think this could happen. And I'm saying all this knowing that I'm about to toss it over to you and you're gonna shit on my hopes and dreams right now. But I think that I like this Jets team quite a bit.
I think this is absolutely one. If you're not thinking it now, you're going to be thinking it pretty soon. In terms of this is ugly, I wish I changed this pick. Let me ask you a question, Simon. Did we both not do this already last year? How much has changed from last year?
Caleb,
where we were going into the season last year.
I'm a Kyle Pitts fantasy believer. You ain't changing my mind.
Exactly. That's the kind of mindset I think people are bringing into the Jets last year. And again, I don't have the Jets doing bad. I think they will be a lot better than last year. But I think the lesson that I'm taking is to just even everything out, to calm down the hype, to get off the absurd hype train from one of the teams with the biggest media conglomerates, from one of the quarterbacks who's one of the most like mercurial personalities, whether you love him or hate him. Like, he gets people talking. People get talking about this Jets team, and I think you just talk yourself into a frenzy until all of a sudden it's Jets in the Super Bowl. But again, I will ask the question, how much has really changed from last year to this year? And the answer is not much.
Aaron Rodgers.
The only thing that has changed is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Now, I think the Jets went 7-10 last year, and looking at that record with how they were playing, I honestly feel like that was an overachievement a little bit, and that was carried a lot by their defense. Because you brought up, I think their defense was pretty good last year. Their defense was spectacular last year.
Yeah.
Their defense was one of the best in the league. It's just that their offense was so inept that they couldn't get anything going. Now, how much of that will change with Aaron Rodgers? I think that will change to a pretty significant amount. Going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers is no small increase. That is a huge upgrade. But to pump the brakes on it, Aaron Rodgers is still 40 years old. He's still coming off one of the worst injuries any football player can have, and the rest of the offense has changed very, very little. The offensive coordinator Nate Hackett, who is one of the worst in the league. And we saw that with the Broncos. We've seen that at almost every stop he went, other than the Packers, which I guess that's the hope they're going off of because he and Aaron Rodgers are buddy-buddy, that all the other stuff we've seen from him in the last 3 to 4 years, where he's totally inept and doesn't know how to run an offense any better than I do on Madden, like, we just think that that goes away. Because Aaron Rodgers is here and is going to go buddy-buddy. But it worked in Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers was about 5 to 6 years younger, so it's got to work here, right? I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers gives you a certain amount of cushion because I still think he's going to be pretty good, but he's a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles tear, so to say he's immediately going to go out and win the AFC when there's a whole bunch of other juggernauts out there that could just come for their throat, especially even in their own division, I think that's just quite ridiculous. I have them also making the playoffs, but I have them making it as the 7 seed at 10-7. If they're going to make the playoffs, I believe they are going to squeak in. Like, I don't think it's going to be like they're going to be world beaters or anything. They are going to be a middle-of-the-pack team that at certain points in the season we will be greatly questioning to say, what is happening with this team? They look completely lost. I think they'll put it together for enough points to say, like, okay, they're making it into the playoffs, and then they're going to get beaten in the first round. Like, I think that's kind of where they're going to be at. Because you look at the floor being last year, they're probably going to beat that, but they haven't made enough changes for me to say, oh yeah, kings of the AFC, like they're going to the Super Bowl, whatever it may be. Because I think that's just ridiculous. And because I think the Jets haven't learned from last year. I think everybody else hasn't learned from last year. The hype from the Jets was not just didn't just go sour because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. That is a large part of it, but I still think there are underlying core issues with the team that Aaron Rodgers attempts to mask over. Like, I think that's the biggest thing for me here. He's not Patrick Mahomes. If you put Mahomes on this Jets roster, sure, yeah, 12-5, win the AFC, sure. I believe in that. Let's do it. But people are treating a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers like he's Patrick Mahomes, and I think at this point in his career, that's pretty ridiculous.
I think that I don't know. I think they're going to do better than you give them credit for. I do think that your opinion of Aaron Rodgers certainly impacts your pick and how good you think he's going to be. Because I still think a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
I still have him at 10-7.
Yeah,
like, I don't have them doing bad.
I still think a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers is significantly better than what they had last year. Zach Wilson, you got to remember, a lot of people were giving the Jets shit because not only were they using a backup quarterback, but they were using a backup quarterback who shouldn't have been a backup quarterback as their starting quarterback because they were just woefully unprepared for Aaron Rodgers going down. I think that was the big reason that Jets team was so bad. And like you pointed out, they still went 7-10. I do think that they absolutely... I don't think 12-5 is out of the question. I absolutely... Like, I'm willing to die on this hill, I think. I think that they will be very good. And I think it's mainly because... Sure, he's 40, but with the weapons he's got, like... The mind doesn't rot the same way. I still think that even if he's a check down merchant or whatever the fuck, I think Aaron Rodgers will still be able to put together a fairly good offense here. And if the defense can hold up and be as good as you say they were last season, I think 12-5 is fairly... I think they got to do it. And with the expectations this year, you got to think that's got to be... Like, anything below that would be a failure in a lot of ways. I think if this team isn't skipping the wild card round, people are going to be pissed because I think the expectations are so high going into this year. We had to wait another year to truly see Aaron Rodgers in a Jets jersey, and I think a lot of people have high expectations this year, maybe carried over from last year, but I still think a lot of the same things that we were saying. Obviously, you had the Jets winning the conference last year. Or no, did he? No, the division.
I don't know if I had them winning the conference.
The division.
I think winning the division.
Yeah, I had them winning the division this year. You said that, or last year. You said that you don't think a lot of shit changed. I think that's one of the things that helps them out here. I still think they have the same really, really good roster that they had going into last year, outside of quarterback. And I think their offense was what let them down last year when A-Rod went down. And I do think that was what got better, even outside of A-Rod. Mike Williams is a pretty big improvement on their, like, just adding him to their wide receiver room. If he can stay healthy, he's going to help them out a lot. I think Garrett.
But that's the big asterisk though with
Yeah.
Mike Williams, right? Is that he never stays healthy. Like, I don't think we've barely ever seen a full season out of him. Like, and that's your wide receiver 2 plan. I don't know how much depth there is after Garrett Wilson, and that's a big concern too.
I don't know. I like this team a lot. I think, assuming no injuries, which is the asterisk for, I think, this entire team.
It's a big assumption.
Yeah, you could say the same thing about the Dolphins. I
Yeah,
think
you could.
Yeah, I think I don't know. That should show you this division more than anything else. The top 2 teams could both be derailed by injuries. Fuck, the Bills could be.
Well,
Like, I think
sorry to interrupt, but I will say one thing to jump in on the injury point. The big difference for me between the Dolphins and the Jets, where the Jets, it's like if 1 to 2 to 3 players go down, they're fucked. If Aaron Rodgers goes down again, they're fucked. If Mike Williams goes down, like, they're not fucked, but I think they're screwed. Like, again, like if Tyron Smith, who again, I think to give the Jets props, because I've kind of been shitting on them, I think they did a pretty good job at addressing their offensive line. But again, if Tyron Smith goes down, which at his age is very possible, I think they're still screwed in a lot of ways. Because again, what got Aaron Rodgers hurt? How bad the offensive line was. They've done a lot to address it with Tyron Smith and Olu Fashanu, but yeah,
snaps.
but I will say for the Jets, it's like if 1 to 2 to 3 players go down, I'm like, they're screwed. The Dolphins, it's like I think 1 to 2 to 3 the players can go down and they won't necessarily be screwed. The reason I have concern is because so many more players are injury prone, but the Dolphins have, I think, built a much better roster to the point where I can take out certain Jenga pieces and the whole thing's not going to fall apart. Like with the Jets last year, you take out the one big Jenga piece and it all crumbles. Crumbles. That's where I think the worry is.
The main reason I bring up injuries for the Dolphins is, like, if Tua goes down and Mike White's starting, like, if Tua's out for the season, this team's terrible. If Tyreek goes out for the season, this team's terrible. I get what you mean, because the depth, like, especially on defense, is absolutely there. Like, let's say Jordan Poyer goes down or Javon Holland goes down. You still have Marcus May, who can slide right into that spot. You're absolutely right in that sense. And a lot of the, in my opinion, lower need positions, I think they do have that depth. But, like, Tyreek Hill goes down, and suddenly, sure, Jalen Waddle and Odell are still great, but I still think that offense absolutely gets hurt. I would argue you're still fucked. Like, I
don't think it falls apart to. I don't think it falls apart to the same extent the Jets does. If Garrett Wilson goes down for the Jets, then I think you're so much more screwed than if Tyreek goes down for the Dolphins. Because if
that's
Garrett Wilson goes down for the Jets, Mike Williams comes up and you already have injury concerns about him. If Tyreek Hill goes down, yeah, you are screwed to a significant extent because he's the key to a lot of what that team does. But Jalen Waddle stepping into that wide receiver 1 spot is still a position that a lot of wide receiver needy teams would be enviable to have. I wouldn't say the same about the Jets. Same thing at quarterback, if I'm being quite honest with you. Like, I think, and this is more of a system thing, where I think if Tua goes down and Mike White comes in, Mike White still has the ability to run Mike McDaniel's system to the point where I'd say I could still see them, like, in the mix for a playoff spot. If Aaron Rodgers goes down, as we saw last year, they're completely screwed.
You're
like, that's the difference between them.
I don't know about that. Are you saying that Mike White is better than Tyrod Taylor? Like, I know Tyrod Taylor gets hurt every chance he gets, but level. Like, I don't know about that. I'd still put Tyrod above Mike White.
I'd put Tyrod above him too, but I would just say, like, I think
guess with Mike White, you don't have to worry about it. That's fair. That's a fair point.
I mean, they put Skylar 2 years ago. They put Skylar Thompson in a playoff game and they almost won. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it was a close game. Like,
I don't know.
That's the difference for me between the Jets and Dolphins. The Jets, they have the structure to do good. I have them as a playoff team. I think the talent on defense is fantastic. As much as I shit on Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to elevate to this team to the point where they're going to go to the playoffs and they're going to have a shot. They're going to have a shot. They have the talent to do that. But the structure that this team is built upon is a lot more fragile than most other teams in the NFL that are around this same skill level. And what we see from teams like that is they often don't succeed to the top level because stuff like this happens. Injuries happen, stuff happens in a season. Most teams don't reach again, this is why we do this whole predicting every game. This is the point of the off season where nobody is hurt, where there's all this hype around the draft and things brought in free agency. Most teams are getting sunshine shoved up their ass. But it's the teams that don't have this good structure, that don't have the good depth, that often get screwed in the season. I don't think the Jets are going to get screwed as bad as they were last year, but I think if people are predicting the same things that they did for them last year, they're going to be pretty disappointed.
Yeah, I'm willing to end this argument, but I think I've said all the things. At this point, I'd just be looping around over and over on the same shit I've already said. But I think more than anything else, it'll be interesting. Yeah, no, I think this is probably the division I'm more excited to watch than a lot of other ones going to this upcoming season, just because of the fact that me and you were able to have this argument. I think this is going to be interesting because the funny thing is with how injury prone both these teams are, I imagine at least one of us is going to be right. Maybe both. Maybe the Bills win the division.
Yeah. But it's like I said at the start. I know you said you have some pushback on that, and I guess that's probably because of the Bills, which I do think are the weakest team of the league. But even to a certain extent, I think Josh Allen gives you enough of a chance if they stay healthy for all of these teams to essentially be interchangeable minus the Patriots.
And one can argue that Drake May is a good enough prospect to potentially go 17-0 with the power of Kendrick Bourne and Stevenson. One could argue. One guy could argue that the Patriots might still be good enough to do what they couldn't do all those years ago. Under the great Tom
2007 Brady. Who? Yeah. 2007 Who? This is the year.
I've literally never heard of Randy Moss. Who the fuck is that? Kendrick Bourne is the best wide receiver in this entire division. You just haven't seen it yet. You haven't seen the vision. He hasn't been used right. Kendrick Bourne.
It was a typo in the top 100, guys. They said Tyreek Hill, but they meant Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, they said. The funny thing is when they were writing it down, everybody just said that one asshole from the AFC East, and everybody went, "Oh, Tyreek Hill." No. Kendrick Bourne. It should have been Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne is going to carry the Pats to the Super Bowl and continue the dynasty that should have never ended. If they had Kendrick Bourne back in Tom Brady's last year as a Patriot, which they might have, I don't remember, but if they did, Tom Brady would still be rocking it to this day in a Patriots uniform. It's just true.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Take it to the house.
It's true.
That's a
Absolutely.
That's a trick play betting guarantee. Patriots to the Super Bowl.
Yep. And you always got to go with our betting guarantees because we know everything.
We know everything. It didn't have the Jets winning this division last year. Shut up.
Speaking of our good predictions, I don't know if you'll be able to do this at this point because I know your playoff website got messed up. But to give a kind of preview, we won't do this next week. We'll do it the week after.
Right.
But for us, our AFC playoffs are kind of set. Okay. So tune in a couple of weeks from now because we'll go through that. I'll say I currently have Bengals as the number 1 seed with a bye. My first round matchups are Dolphins and Ravens as the 4 and 5 seed, which should be a good game. Texans v Jets, that's the 2v7, and Chiefs versus Colts as the 3v6. So we'll tune into that in a couple of weeks. Next week we'll be doing the NFC North, which is a pretty interesting division. We were bookending it. AFC North and the NFC North were two of the more interesting ones. So we got some exciting stuff coming up.
I can somewhat give mine. The Jets end up getting a first round bye. Like I said, they'd be first in the AFC in my magical world. And then it would be 2v7, right? So 2v7 would be Texans versus Steelers. which is interesting.
Okay.
That's gonna be one of the more. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe
That's
the
such a
Steelers can do something.
That's such a 2v7 playoff game. Though.
Absolutely.
I can so see that.
Yeah.
That was like Bill Steelers last year.
Yeah. And then 3v6 would be Ravens versus Bengals. That'll be a good one. That'll be good for the wild card. And then after that, it'd be what? What am I missing here? I'm missing
4 and
5, which would be Chiefs and Jaguars, which that could be a shootout. That could be good.
Yep.
So I think that would be mine. I think that's all the ones I have there.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the NFC. Yeah, we still have one more, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still have the NFC.
NFC North.
NFC North, which we started with the AFC North. We're gonna end with the NFC North, which I think, like I said at the very beginning of this entire thing, and you know what? With that being said, I do think that the division we just talked about could rival it. But I think this upcoming division has the potential to be the most fun in the NFL this year. And it's the reason I wanted to save it for last. Because I think there's not necessarily a lot of controversial picks. I think we'll probably be in agreement on a lot of it. But I still am excited to talk about it. Because I think it's going to be a fun division. So tune in for that.
Yeah, absolutely.